Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to welcome you to the Seattle Vocational Institute. Also, we are a satellite campus of Seattle Central College. We're here today for a special day. We have tiny houses that have been built around the city. We're partnering with the city of Seattle, the college here in our pre-apprenticeship program. Also, I want to just let you know the importance of tiny houses. Tiny houses have housed over 300 residents in the tiny houses. Also, they have been able to transition into permanent housing because that's the purpose of tiny houses, is just temporary. We want to move them into permanent housing. And on behalf of the Lehigh Board, I sit on the Lehigh Board, the president is Sharon Lee. I want to thank them for partnering with Seattle Vocation and the tiny houses. Also, we have so many other partners around the tiny houses, and we want to thank them as well. Some couldn't make it here today, but we thank them on all the houses that are being built for the homeless. Also, Lehigh has 6 locations now with tiny house villages. We're hoping to partner to have many more facilities around the city. So I just want to welcome you here to the Seattle Vocational. We have our dean here, that's Maureen Shader. We have our director of the PAC program here today, which is Krishna Richardson Daniels, is the director of our program. And also, I am an outreach coordinator and retention person for the PAC program to place our students on construction jobs. And so we have a very important young man that will be here today. I'm going to introduce, and his name is Gerald Brooks, and he will come and introduce himself and how the tiny houses supported him. So thank you, and we welcome you here to the Seattle Vocational Institute. God bless you.
Good morning, Seattle. My name is Gerald Brooks, and I'm a veteran of the Air Force for 4 years, and I've been homeless here for 4 years in Seattle. I got into Licton Springs Village, July 2016, and it made me feel very secure, safe, and relieved. Richard, my case manager of this low-income housing institute, helped me get into permanent housing at Marion West, located in the U District. Being in Licton Springs has provided me with security, stability, and a roof over my head that I didn't have in 4 years. And for that, I'm very thankful to the tiny houses, perfect foundation to stand on in order for me to get into permanent housing. I'd like to thank Mayor Durkan and Lehigh, my case manager Richard, for this great honor. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce the mayor, the new mayor of Seattle, Ms. Jenny Durkan.
Gerald, thank you so much for, one, being willing to be here and share your story. Thank you, Reverend Willis, for the kind introduction. We know it's been a journey and it's not done yet, and we appreciate the willingness to come forward to this time. Throughout my campaign, and since I've been mayor, I've said that the #1 challenge we face as a city right now is affordability. And tied to that issue is the heartbreaking crisis of people experiencing homelessness. It's a crisis that demands urgent action, and it's one that there is no one silver bullet and no one solution. We must take a variety of steps and strategies to overcome the very real crisis facing our brothers and sisters living in the street. So today we're here to announce one new way of addressing this shared challenge. We know too many people are living in the streets, and many of them are in dangerous and inhumane conditions. There are thousands of people living unsheltered in Seattle, and more than that, living in the county. This morning I was able to meet with a number of the mayors from the Puget Sound Basin, and then had a meeting with the county executive. In both of those meetings, we stressed the importance of addressing the issue of affordability and homelessness and doing it as a region. We simply don't have the capacity right now to move people off the streets and out of the heartbreaking conditions they find themselves. And to making it worse, more and more people are being pushed out of the city and on the verge of homelessness. So our strategies have to be not only to build urgently more capacity, but also to have prevention, to have as many ways as possible to keep people from falling into homelessness. We know that for every $100 that rent increases, homelessness can increase as much as 15% in our city. So we need to make progress, and we need to make it immediately. Another thing I said when I was running for office, and as mayor I've said, is we will be evaluating, not just inventorying our property in Seattle that may be suitable for housing, both permanent housing and short-term housing. But when we sell city property, I want to make some evaluation on how does it move us closer to our goals on affordability. In looking at the sale of the property that we're talking about today, I had a very simple question. What can we do with the sale of this property to improve our position on homelessness? It was not a parcel that lent itself to us building our own housing because of the size of it and its proximity to different places. So we wanted to make sure that we could squeeze as much as we could out of this one parcel of property. First, we have to understand that this is just a bridge. We know that tiny houses and micro houses are not a solution for long-term and supportive housing that many of the people living in the streets need. But we have to have more capacity, more humane places than the streets, vehicles, tents, and unsheltered situations that people find themselves. Second, we've got to maximize this. I had three components in looking at this property is what could we do cost effectively, urgently, and something that would move us forward. Upon passing this legislation, I'm happy to have with me here, and I want to thank the council members who are here today, both Councilmember Bagshaw and Councilmember Juarez, who are supporting this legislation. There's additional council members who couldn't make it that will give you that, who supported it as well. We are taking a sale of one property, and by selling this one property, we're first going to make sure that we take care of the essential city services that this property represented. This was a communication facility. We will use some of the proceeds of this property to make sure that those services continue or are not disrupted. We will take some additional monies and use it for planning a needed fire facility in South Lake Union. As our city's grown, our essential city services have not. That still leaves us with enough money to try to attack today our affordability crisis. We will reinvest $5.5 million in the sale of this project into a bridge housing investment strategy. We're going to house people on jobs. This will make sure that we have bridge shelter and housing options as quickly and as cheaply as possible. As part of the strategy, this $5.5 million will be invested in the bridge housing strategy. We also are going to, because of negotiations of the sale of this property, we negotiated, instead of having the housing affordability payment come at the end of the project, we negotiated to have $2 million paid up front, so that can go into our fund for permanent housing. In addition, there'll be a $1.2 million at the end of the project of the MHA payment that will also go to more permanent housing. We're also going to use $2 million for our rental assistance program. You know, we looked at who's been on the Seattle Housing Authority wait list, and too many people, while they're on that wait list, fall into homelessness. So we did an analysis to make sure that we could drive resources as quickly as we could to those people who were at the greatest risk for falling into homelessness. In addition, we will establish an innovative housing strategy sub-cabinet that will pull different parts of city government together to make sure that as we move forward, we're moving forward as one city to address this crisis. We've outlined before that we will explore options. We are here today, and I think it's great to have this setting here at Seattle Vocational Institute, and with the tiny homes behind us, and these people who are building these shelters for the people who need it. It symbolizes in so many ways the things I want to do holistically as mayor. We have to, the other part of the affordability crisis is to actually empower people economically, to provide those good wage jobs. To do that, we've got to give people the job skills, the training to do it. And we're seeing the people today using those job skills and training to build tiny homes, to show that we are one city and we are going to work together to do this. So we couldn't have a better location for demonstrating that this isn't a problem that we can focus on in isolation. It's something we have to look holistically over our educational system, our employment structure, and opportunity in this city, while addressing the very urgent need today for people to have some shelter. We're going to look at a wide range of, you can clap at that. You know, we are going to look at a range. We have an opportunity because of when this property will close and the ordinance will pass to make sure that we're getting ready now so that when it does, we can deploy those monies immediately. And we want to look at a variety of things. This gives us an opportunity to explore. Maybe we have tiny homes. We also do backyard cottages like the Backyard Project, blockables and the like, to see what are those range of choices that a city can be investing in that can provide opportunities throughout this city for people to be housed in a more humane way, while also ensuring that we're taking that money for the long-term supported housing that people really deserve. Everyone deserves a home. I want to say it is really remarkable to see our city come together in this way. I talked to all of the city council members who were all supportive in one way or another. Everyone wants to pull together to really have an urgent solutions to this issue. Same with the mayors, meeting with the mayors earlier today and with Dow Constantine. We will address this as a region as well. You know, the question of affordability is not just Seattle. The question of homelessness is not just in Seattle. People are experiencing homelessness throughout our region. And the more people that get pushed out of Seattle, the more they are experiencing that same economic fragility that we see in Seattle. We have to take holistic approaches in Seattle and as a region. We're going to establish a Seattle rental housing assisted pilot project, as I discussed, to really look at those people most at risk. Finally, we're going to make sure that part of the sale of this property goes, as I've always said, to reinvest in those basic city services which every taxpayer demands. So with the sale of this one property, we are advancing multiple goals. We're going to make sure that the essential city services continue. We're going to plan for the future of essential city services in the fire department, but we're also going to talk about two parts of the affordability crisis. Those people who need rental assistance today so they don't fall into homelessness, and those people who are already experiencing homelessness to give them a different form of shelter. So I want to thank everyone for coming and for the incredible team of public servants at the city of Seattle who work every day. You know, we often just see one segment or the another of the city working in this, but it really is everyone. The Seattle Fire Department has become almost the frontline health provider for many of the people experiencing services. Seattle IT is creating that connectivity. The Human Services Department is working overtime as we reconfigure how we address homeless services. The Office of Housing, Steve Walker, who's here today, is working hard to make sure that we are planning for that city, not just today in the crisis, but in 5 years, in 10 years. The Seattle Housing Authority has been a tremendous partner throughout this and has been working with people, as is the city office budget. So in closing, I just want to say we have to have a unified vision of what our city looks like in the future. And that city has to be one where everybody has economic opportunity, where every kid growing up in Seattle knows they can have any job they want in Seattle, and we're going to provide them the basis to get there. We have to have a city where people can live in any part of the city, regardless of their economic status, their race, their faith. And we have to have a city that has built the backbone of transit to make that all possible, to have the connectivity so that we have good buses and light rail connecting people so that we live and work around those spaces in a way that reflects what we are as a city. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. Again, Gerald, I want to thank you for sharing your story. Know that we're with you and wish you all the luck. We want to give more people the opportunity that you've had, is to say, I was down, the city helped me get up, I will move forward. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take some questions.
Madam Mayor, first on the issue of the bridge housing. Certainly we have example here of someone who's been able to get out of bridge housing into permanent housing. But what about the program overall? How do we know that people are going to be getting out of the tiny houses and into permanent housing?
It's a great question. We have a system that was not ready for the growth in Seattle. You know, our transportation systems weren't ready, our social service systems weren't ready, and our housing infrastructure wasn't ready. So we are going to be building as quickly as possible long-term affordable housing for people. We announced about 3 weeks ago $100 million of investment in that. So we need to build capacity at every part of the pipe. We need more long-term affordable housing, and we needed it 2 years ago. And so it's going to take us time to catch up to that. But I think that if you see what's coming online, you will see that we are making as progress as we can, as quickly as we can. As we have that capacity, we will have more throughput. We don't have what we want right now, and we got to be honest about that. We also have to be honest that right now we do not have a short-term shelter capacity to get people off the street into something more humane. This is a start to fix that.
And to follow up on something you were saying, as you know, the state legislature has not passed a capital budget, and there's federal money for housing at stake that's going to be lost today. How does that affect the plans to build the necessary permanent housing here in Seattle?
Look, it's a race against the clock. You know, we cannot build our housing quickly enough to address the problem, which is why urgent actions like this are so necessary. In the ideal world, we would not need to be building tiny houses. We would not need to have a micro housing strategy that was there to address the people experiencing homelessness, but that's where we are. And I think in terms of the federal dollars, I was in Olympia last week. Executive Constantine was there this week. We are continuing to have discussions with him every day. Speaker Frank Chop has been an excellent partner in this, is doing everything he can to move the legislature to get the capital budget and to get us more assisting on housing. So I can't speak to the federal dollars and losing it, but it shows you how much of an emergency this is. And it also shows you another thing. Seattle can't go it alone. We can't fix this problem by ourselves. We have to admit that as a city. We have to do everything we can do. But if we don't do it as a region and in partnership with the state and hold them accountable, we will never get ahead of this problem.
Can you go into more detail about the rental housing pilot program? I read in this one pager about that it's going to assist about 150 families over 2 years. Are these just money vouchers for their existing units that they're living in, or
it's going to be a combination of things as we roll this out. We want to make sure that project also, it's not just a voucher. I think it's very important to make it successful that those people also have to be connected with a case manager who's looking to make sure they really can get housing. Because we've seen that there has been varied amounts of success and some outright failures in just handing people vouchers and say go find housing. And so we're going to focus on those people who we think need the assistance the most, provide them support to make sure that the vouchers are geared to what the rent assistance they need is, because it's geared to 60% AMI and below, but depending on where they fall on that scale, they may need more assistance. And then marry that up with a case manager to make sure that we're not just saying, here's a voucher, good luck to you.
But these are all people, to be clear, on the SHA voucher waiting list?
Correct.
Okay.
With more tiny houses coming online, where are they going to go? Are there more spaces available to build tiny home locations in villages?
It's a great question. We were in the process in the next 2 months doing a lot of discussions around siting. I want to make it very clear that this project its focus is creating new capacity. At the same time, the city of Seattle is in the process of upgrading, if you will, our sanctioned encampments to move more towards tiny houses away from tents. But this money will not be used for that. This is for new capacity, and we will be looking at whether it's new sites, it's a combination of sites. As we said, we're going to look at a range of types of tiny houses or micro houses. It may be that we are able to assist the backyard cottage movement, and I think that you're seeing more and more support for that. I've had the ability to tour the one that's there. It's a great success for the people who own the house, for the neighborhood, for the person living there. Obviously, that's not scalable to the same extent that we need urgently, but it can be part of the solution.
2 more questions?
Which property is which?
Which property is all this money coming from? Is it the same one the council was discussing last year? And
It's at the end of last year.
But same one?
Same property. It's where the communication facilities where we put communication radios into police vehicles.
I'm just confused about, the council was talking about something like $4 million and going up to maybe $9 million from the sale, but this looks like it's more
selling
like
for
$14
$11 million.
Any thoughts on low barrier, no barrier? What would you like to see the tiny house villages
We
to
want to
be?
get as many people off the streets sighted humanely, and we want it to be low barrier. Thank you very much for coming. And again, I want to thank you for all the work you're doing here. Thank you, Reverend, for leading this program. And Gerald, thank you very much. No, you're not wasting time. Are you kidding? I got your password now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah? All right.